clothes, give me love, and give me shelter, shelter. Simple life, it's all we want to live. Give me food, give me clothes, give me love, and give me shelter, shelter. Yeah.
So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the We Too Are Liberians Movement podcast or platform, your distinct and dynamic platform that speaks to and for the masses. We're not in the business of manufacturing players, pimps, and hustlers. Rather, we're in the business of changing and revolutionizing the thought process of our people, not only in Liberia, but even around the world. And so today we have another monologue. I believe earlier on today I did a short, was pretty much a gist of what tonight's episode is all about. Title for tonight's live or video, or we can say our show is Paved Promises, Broken Dreams, Liberia's Road to Nowhere, and Why Yellow Machines Wouldn't Save Us. Again, Paved Promises, Broken Dreams, Liberia's Road to Nowhere, and Why Yellow Machines Wouldn't Save Us. And so if you're tuning, I ask that you begin to share this live with, or share a show with as many people as possible. So I'll go ahead and like I usually do, which is our tradition, I'll try to share the live here with as many people as possible. And so do me a favor if you're tuning in. Like I said, I think this live is just as important. So go to your, you can go to your Facebook, or you can go to YouTube and do me a favor and begin to share this live. I think it's critical for our country, the well-being of our citizens, the well-being of the quality of life of our people in locally in Liberia, as well as the diaspora, because I know in the diaspora, a lot of us, we do contribute to immensely to the economy of that country, because we have family, we have relatives, and to a large extent, a lot of us, we also travel to Liberia on a regular basis, and we take advantage of the road. I know a lot of things in Liberia are centralized, but at the same time, yes, some of us, we have family members, we have in the interior, we have our businesses, or we have our homes, whatever, not in the city center, but outside Monrovia. So again, our title for tonight, Paved Promises, Broken Dreams, Liberia's Road to Nowhere, and Why Yellow Machines Won't Save Us. I think the major headlines that we have in Liberia right now is this. We have Vice President Kong, as well as the Minister of Public Works. I think I was just going through my Facebook page, and I saw the Vice President accompanied by the Minister of Public Works in China. I believe they were making some kind of assessment for Yellow Machine. And this Yellow Machine saga has been around for a very long time. There's been a lot of folks who have some concerns, and one of the reason why I think it's critical that we have this discussion, because I, who happen to be representative of this small grassroots platform, I think road connectivity, when it comes to road bridges, I do have tremendous interest in it, because that's where I have my strength. That's my background. And I think with good roads in Liberia, good road network, good planning, we will be able to not only move goods and services from one point to another, but we will also have smooth travel. So to begin with, again, I ask that you please share this live with as many people. So imagine setting off from Monrovia, full of hope, only to be greeted by dust pits, half-finished asphalt, and century-old potholes. This is Liberia today. Senator Chair, I guess, Albert Chair, I think that's his name, reminds us 13,000 kilometers of roads this country has. but just 1,200 kilometers are paved as of December 2024. So that leaves more than 90% in dire condition, costing over about, let's say, 7 billion US to finish. Yet billion has been allocated, billions have disappeared. So what's going on? And here we are, because we don't want this to be about politics. I started the short today talking about what's more important. I think we've not prioritized, we are not setting goals, we've not been strategic. And this has nothing to do with Bokai's regime. This, I think, has nothing to do with the previous, I would say, George Weah's regime. It could be Ellen and things of that nature. This goes way back. And this is something that we have to address. And I think I did mention on the live today that it goes back to, us as Liberians, who we want to be, who we are, our identity, and what type of people we want to be. Because if we were to look at this from a more nationalistic or being a Liberian nationalist, I would think, first of all, what my concern is, what type of country do we want? And that speaks to the core of what we want this country to be like, what kind of infrastructure we want, what kind of roads we want. And there are a lot of technocrats. Liberia has a lot of, besides maybe civil engineers, we have electrical engineers, we have computer scientists, computer engineers, we have finance professionals, economists. So what are we doing? But for me, I do have a strong interest when it comes to our road and road network. And so that's why under our small grassroots, organization, we decided to propose this national road. And that was something that I was talking about, a national road, since Liberia is a country, national road, inter-county road, and then municipal roads. And from there, we can start talking about, a plan that is to be able to classify our roads. Because I was in Liberia last September, and that was one of the major concerns that I had. Because before going to Liberia, I've heard that there has been a lot of road constructions in the country. But only to get to Liberia, when we left the airport, driving on the Roberts International, airport highway, I was very disappointed. Very, very disappointed. And what actually came to mind was, what is going on? And so quickly, I began to think about what's the department, Department of Public Works, its role, its responsibility, and what came to mind. I think what's more important, it's good. You're trying to get the yellow machine, you're trying to get all these different earth-moving equipments, but this is one thing we don't have. We have not sat down, put together, we've not properly or strategically put together any plan, strategic plan as to our specifications, our special provisions, our standard drawings, that we have these contractors say, these are the types of roads that we want. These are the types of bridges that we want. So those are things that I think we should have been more concerned about. And those especially who find themselves in leadership, and so if you aspiring for leadership, those are things you should be concerned about. We if we were prioritize, setting those priorities, setting our priorities right, then we'll be on a pathway to a better Liberia, to a better country, a better society that will sooner or later be able to compete with other countries or other our sister countries, neighboring countries around us. Because, like I always mention, Liberia is a subset of Africa. And one of the things that I think we need to also take into consideration, this country's been around so long. Sooner or later, in a few weeks, we'll be celebrating 178 years. 178 years. And go to the country and see the type of infrastructure that we have. No, poor infrastructure, nothing we have. So now, the point I'm trying to make, we've not put into place, because the truth is we're not building any roads. You know what I mean? We're trying to maintain existing roads, but we go around masquerading, talking about we're building these roads now. We're trying to secure equipments that we're taking to the country, or we bring to the country to, you know, I don't know if we're trying to put up a show, but this is the point that I'm trying to make. So this is it. Now, 285 earth movers from China paraded the officials as the asshole. But let me ask you the question. So what happened? Or what's the problem? What problem are we solving? You know what I mean? The first thing here is secrecy. So despite the public demand, you know what I mean, detail on the deal, who paid, how much they paid, you know what I mean, how are they going to procure, remain actually hidden. This is not something that has been made clear. You understand what I'm saying? So Centel actually demanded full transparency before this becomes another shadow project run by a secret, you know, handshake. The next thing here is broken before they arrive. So who've checked, or who do we have as the technocrat who is going to go along with, you know what I mean, our vice president, or who had traveled with the vice president and the minister of public works to make sure that those equipment, those earth moving equipment that they're trying to procure or are in the progress of procuring now are in good shape. You know what I mean? They're not used equipment. You know, we've not trained we don't have the requisite staff, you know, maintenance personnel who will be able to maintain this equipment. But that, you know what I mean, I will go back and forth, you know. So then let's also consider that you know what I mean, that means no trained crew to run those equipment, to repair them, or to maintain, you know, those equipment. You know what I mean? So those are warning signs that we need to take into consideration. Then, if we're to take it a step forward and talk about the spare parts, you know what I mean? Where will we be getting spare parts from? Is the government considering all of that? I'm going to get to the road itself. You know what I mean? So there are no authorized supplier in Liberia for Chinese signing machines. No warranty. You know what I mean? No telematic, no AMC parts that we can be able to procure in the event if there's breakdown. So that's like owning a car with no tires or engine repair service. And it's dangerous because we're making these investments and we're not taking into consideration the long-term losses. So those are things that we should actually start down to talk about before we even go ahead and actually initiate it, you know, I mean, this whole you know, process of procuring yellow machine or whatever. So we'll get to the actual road, you know, construction itself. So what it means here is that this deal is not done right. You know, the Chinese offer was rejected earlier, right? Why? Because it came with similar terms, but without transparency and sustainability, including spare parts. So then the question remains, yes, they're making these assessments. They're doing the assessment. The deal, it seems like the deal, to a large extent, will fall through. But those are things that we need to consider. And if we're not taking those factors into consideration, I'm telling you, we're already setting ourselves up for a fall. Now, so meanwhile, over 60% of the National Road Fund paid from each gallon of fuel has vanished over 6 years. Over 6 years. And that's why when you drive in Monrovia or other parts, maybe Monrovia is environs, maybe you go into the hinterland, we notice that road conditions are bad. You know what I mean? So now, why are we really dazzled by a yellow machine is the question. You know, because they're visible. We can see them, you know, that they display them all over the place. But true progress is a yellow machine. It's not. You know what I mean? It's green, the green of well-planned, well-maintained road built by trained Liberians. You know what I mean? By Liberians using our own hands, wise systems, and transparencies, you know what I mean, to back them. And those are things that we really, 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 really need. If we can have trained staff, we can have trained technicians, you know, mechanics who will already have, you know what I mean, in the event, if we purchase it, we procure these equipment and then we bring them into the country, you know what I mean? Also take into consideration that we have warranty, we have the parts and all that stuff. Then I think we'll be on the pathway. But I just, in my own opinion, I don't think this is the pathway that we need to take. So let's get back to my concern about this government or the Department of Public Works. Why it's important for us to sit down, you know, and put together, you know, plan properly and then begin to write or to pen our special provision. I would say again, over and over again, our specification, you know, just like we have here overseas. The United States has what they call ASTRA. ASTRA is the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials. I think we need to have those bodies. American Standard for Testing Material. Maybe we can also have those bodies in Liberia, meaning that we're already setting the pace. Then, once we go out with a Liberia National Highway Administration, we can do that because what we're doing now, that will be all will form part of us putting together our national roadway specification. Then we can go ahead again and then design our inter-county specification. Then we go ahead and say our municipal. So then once we set with that, it will be a pathway for us to move forward. Then we can do our material selection. But we have not sat down. And the reason why this is happening, that's why I go back to say, what kind of country are we? What kind of people are we? What kind of people do we want to be? 1822 to 1847. Now we have 2025. Here we are. We're talking about this one Monrovia. We've been building it. We've overbuilt it. It has become congested. See the roads that they talk about, that they're building, they're trying to procure all these 280 some more yellow machine to do what with it. So where would they be keeping these equipments? As we go back and forth talking about our specification, talking about standard drawings, talking about special provisions and things like that. Sources of supply. So we can say, you know what? Yes, as I mentioned today, we know that the most universally used construction material is concrete. And since we're talking about roadway, we did mention today that the two most familiar used pavement in Liberia, or maybe universally, the two are, one would be rigid pavement, and the other would be bituminous, which is the asphalt, the block coat top. Back in the days we call it coat top. Now, what the department needs to do here, the department is supposed to have designated plants under the supervision of the same department, because the department will come up with her own design mix, a mixed design for concrete, and for the asphalt, then we can come up with our, also we call that job mix formula. So I'm going back and forth. So I'm just trying to bring this into context to say, look, what we want at first. We put all this into context. Then we can move ahead now, gradually, because we already know we come with our design, our conceptual design. If we're saying that we don't have to go and procure equipment. We can outsource our work in the meantime. And the reason why we'll do this, and in the interim, we can start training our technocrats. You know what I mean? The money that we take and buy all these different, trying to procure all that, we can build little institutes. The concrete institutes. We can build our steel institutes. You know what I mean? You know, our asphalt institutes. And the training that we'll be offering, it don't have to be 4 or 5 years. then we can train our people under a year. You know what I mean? Because then I know the country already we have civil engineers, we have electrical engineers, we have transportation engineers. You know what I mean? We have all these different professionals that we ourselves, maybe we can hire a few, pay them well, bring them, make sure they're trained, and they can now work alongside those entities or those companies that we will hire. At first, we can say, look, we want you to come down and then for our national role, because we'll be sampling them. We can do everything simultaneously, or we can start. For example, look at the coastline. We could do a mass transit from maybe Bowman Hill all the way to Harper, Maryland. That role we can classify, since that particular role, and what we do with our national role, we'll make sure it's circled from maybe Kip Mountain all the way, go around Buchanan, go down to Grandcess, Sumner County, you go to Maryland, and then go around, go Grangedale. We talk about the entire perimeter of the country, go up Nimba County, and we can go around Lo-Fi, come back down. So that will be our national road. So it means that you'll be able to make a tour of the country on the national road. Then we can begin to connect. These are the things I think that will be important for us to sit down and start thinking about. Even if we can invest, you know what I mean, a lot of our resources on just the planning, because in that process, now we're identifying stakeholders and would tell us how much we need to do this. You know what I mean? Then after that, we have to design for our intercounty roads. Same thing we can do with intercounty roads. The road may not be the grade, the roadway classification, I mean, the pavement or whatever it is, you know, whether we're using rigid pavement, that class may not be as compared to our national road. Same way, and the type of vehicles that will be used on the roads. So let's take into consideration a couple other factors, because it's not just the roadway. You know what I mean? The roadway construction is quite different from a bridge construction. And for a country like Liberia, where we have, depending on the contour of the land, you know what I mean, one would say, oh, it's a 1 mile road or 2 mile road would cost X, Y, Z. But depending, what if we're building a road that, you know, along the roadway, for example, maybe we have in Liberia, the road miles in kilometer, but we'll just say it was in miles. You know what I mean? We have a 50-mile road, maybe 100-mile road. Depending on the depth of the road or how wide that road would be, will cost a little bit more. And some of the roads will require mechanically stabilized earth. We see how the roads are locked because we're trying to build our roads to international standards. So that's where we should be sitting down and think. Even if we're thinking now on a more minuscule level, where we just want to maybe just build standard roads, you know what I mean? Not even up to that level. But we must begin to think, because, again, it goes back to the question. So what type of country we want? What type of infrastructure we want? See how our roads are built. See how our homes are being built randomly, without any code, no alleyway. I mean, you see the roads are built, no sight distance. And not only because you build these roads, some of the other things you have to consider, the roadway signs. You know what I mean? Traffic signals, traffic signs. And now we're living in the information technology time. One would say, Ayiti, maybe you're taking it too far. So we'll go back and forth. We'll go to the yellow equipment, because I don't think that this yellow equipment that this government is trying to procure, we have to think about how it's really going to benefit this country. Because if we're just talking about, all right, we want to make sure we're doing roadway maintenance as opposed to actually building roads, then that's a whole different ballgame. Maybe we're wasting money, because we can begin, like I said, we classify a road, and then maybe from smaller roads that we would build and start charging people. Because one would ask, but how do we generate resources to be able to build more roads. So we can start small. If we want to maybe partner, because we have resources. So we can also use our resources. If the taxpayer money that we are gathering, maybe we can put into the roads and start building, better roads that in the long run, even if the road is not up to par, but if we build a solid base, because in the long run, we can always go back. We can strip off or mill off the existing asphalt or whatever it is. But once we put together a solid base, then we're ready for the future. So, and then another thing we have to consider, a lot of these roads that we're building, what are the roads that we're building? We don't have any expressway. Look at we cannot even, there's not one road in Liberia where we would say we have a ramp. People are building on properties that are encroached on roadway, the right of way, and things of that nature. Those are things that we need to sit down and think about. But I don't think the decision that we're taking now, I don't know if this is the right path. I don't know how it's going to benefit this country. So, and this is why we must all, I just highlighted that, we must try to reject shortcuts that cheat our nation's future. So what we actually need to demand here is a national standard, like I said, written specification that should be enforced. And how do we do that enforcement? Provide oversight. We need technical training, like I said, revive our road maintenance, training centers. We have to teach our Liberian youth, in partnership with real professional firms. How do we do that? How do we make that happen? What is the department doing? Because it's the department's responsibility to ensure that this is happening. You know what I mean? Ring fence finding. We order that with public reporting, separate from other discretionary spending. We sit there and we're spending all this, buying all these big cars, wasting our money on the unnecessary. When we can take the resources that we have, if we're thinking, from that Pan-African or with that nationalistic or being a Liberian nationalist, then I think we will be thinking this way. So for those of you who have tuned in, you're watching the We Too Are Liberians Movement platform, your distinct and dynamic platform. Our platform aims at educating, cultivating, and empowering. So this is all we do. We try to share information, and this is where our little strength is. So we're concerned about the government procuring these 285 earth-moving equipment, and we don't really see how these equipments are going to benefit this country. Now, because we must be concerned about the future of this country that will soon be 178. This country is moving towards 2 centuries, 178 years. What do we have to show for? Without good roads, we won't be able to move goods and services. We won't be able to build better homes, hospitals. We won't be able to have access to move goods and services from one place to another. And this is why we want to bring to the forefront and bring to the limelight why it's important for us to go back to the drawing table and begin to plan and then plan properly. So master planning, centering agriculture, markets, health, and integration, not just election years optics. So is this just for a show? Or do we really love this country? If this is about really building our infrastructure, building this country for the future, I think we have to rethink our decisions. We reshape our roles and then our roles shape us. This is something that we need to think about. So the government officials, your quest shouldn't be hundreds of yellow machines. You must pursue hundreds of trained engineers. This is the proposal that we want to make. Technicians and planners. You have Stella Marie. You have the University of Liberia, Tubman, I guess college is probably now university. We have other emerging universities. Why are we not concerned about investing into properly educating our people, giving them the requisite foundation? And because of the quality of people that will produce will obviously lead to the quality of infrastructure, goods, services, or whatever we will be providing. So that's why it's important. We want to come back and reiterate this, to resound this, to say this over and over and over again. Hopefully it resonates. But if we're just in this because, for the optic, because we want people to see what we have done, I don't think 6 years is not quite enough. Some of the things I'm talking about. But proper planning, you know what I mean? We can sit down and really strategize, plan properly. And there will come a time where when we sit down, we strategize properly, we put together these specifications, we put together these standards, rights, and special provisions, we can go to sleep. And then we just make sure that after we train these technocrats, and then we have these consulting firms that we can give our work to, say, look, you will be our eye. Because now we have our designated plants. Like I said today, as far as 3 layers, you have the base course, intermediate course, and then you have the wearing course. But when the material is placed or the material comes from the lab, who's checking? Who's checking the plant? How do we know we're getting the proper mix of the job mix formula? And then when the material is before the material is placed, how do we even know? Who's verifying temperature? When the material is placed, how are we getting the proper depth? All of those things. Where are we core sampling? After we core sample, how are we core sampling this? Which lab are we taking our asphalt to make sure, we're actually getting what we're paying for? So there's no oversight. There is a lot to be talked about. Again, to government officials, your quest shouldn't be hundreds of yellow machines. I think it's time that we pursue hundreds of trained engineers, technicians, and planners. That's real infrastructure. The first infrastructure now we must invest in would be our trained engineers, our trained technicians, our trained planners. It may seem like going all over the place. And then hopefully we'll be able to depopulate the city. And then we can subdivide, our communities. Rather than people, you take your nice building and you say you just build a big house in Sunny Wing. Think about it. If that house was $200,000, just because you build it in Sunny Wing, now it's devaluated. Because you know what? Houses are actually appraised or valued based on the houses in that area. You take a clinic and you build it somewhere. When I went to Liberia, I'm not very familiar with the area, but when you go behind the Freeport area there, one representative would say, oh, he just built a clinic. What are we doing to our people? And what are we doing to ourselves? Poor infrastructure. Let's stick with the roads and the bridges. Same thing with the concrete plant. We take our projects and we give it to these people and we don't follow through. How about we invest now on proper planning, strategizing, and then identifying the right stakeholders who really do have the interest in seeing this country being better and seeing this country growing and moving to the next level. I think this is really crucial Because if we put this into context and then if we begin to take this route, we'll see that this country will be on a new path to success. But how can this happen if we don't have people who are willing to die to self? And this is why the We Too movement is skewed towards this concept of our ancestors. Now, I mean, the philosopher or a philosophy that's grounded on the principle of I am because we are. And that's why we say, I'm doing good if you're doing, I'm only doing good if you're doing good. So that every Liberian asks the hard question, demand public audit, insist on professional training. Don't settle for shiny earth movers who parts will struggle, we will struggle to find. That's not what we want. So the real tough question should be asked. We have to demand for public audits. Where is the money going? You know what I mean? Are we supposed to just have the vice president go and assess, to have a visual look at some kind of, or mass yellow machines? How does it really benefit this country when we're not actually properly planned? We have not developed specifications. You know what I mean? We have not even put into place the kind of material that we need when it comes to our rebars. You know what I mean? Like I was talking again, the concrete. Concrete. If we were to say, okay, what's the mix design for our national road? Or maybe 5,000 psi. But how do we know we're getting 5,000 psi? Because one Lebanese guy will have his plant, and he would create the mix. Popular Wax would pay a blind eye, and he comes. And, the real truth is, even before the material leaves the plant, we're supposed to have our technicians, our concrete technician at the lab, observing, making sure that the material has been tested, where our material has been stored, our fine aggregate, because concrete, not only the Portland cement, which is the most universally used construction material, but when it comes to concrete, before I talk about reinforced concrete, concrete is a combination of fine aggregate, coarse aggregate, water, admixture, and then when we reinforce it now, we have the rebars. Where are we getting the sand from? Which is the fine aggregate. Where's the coarse aggregate coming from? So we say, this is the class of concrete that we want. So before the concrete leaves the plant, maybe we have our technocrats on ground to test in the air, testing, making cylinders to make sure that, yes, we'll get the design strength. Those are things that we need to think about. We get a slump to check the fluidity, because the more liquefied the concrete is, it starts to lose its strength. Then we can do the cylinders, because if we were building our bridges and they're delivering the material, concrete takes an hour and a half from the time the concrete is bashed to the time it's being delivered to the site and then being placed. I saw some work that was being done. Who's providing the oversight? Who's making sure it's the proper mix, the proper concrete mix? Those are things that we should be concerned about. So we get all the road fund, $7 million USD will pocket. Is this the kind of country we want? And so this is deeply rooted in the type of people we are, who don't care about this country. And that's why for us, we consider this a call to action. Your quest shouldn't be hundreds of yellow machines. You must pursue hundreds of trained engineers, technicians, and planners. That's the real infrastructure. That's the real Pan-Africanism. Liberia belongs to Liberian. And Liberia is a subset of Africa. And we know sooner or later that we will all converge, we'll all get together. So when we get together, we can't be too far behind. Some of our young men, they don't have to go to college. We can train them to be technician, concrete technician, asphalt technician, steel benders, you know what I mean? Plumbers, carpenters, woodworkers, you know what I mean? All that stuff. Masons. And we're creating jobs because, the institute that we will create, and then we will start to pay them better. That's another thing we want to even propose. And so those are things that the department should be more concerned about. Securing that. And so we just, we're doing 400-kilometer road and all of that. We're playing games. It's all about the optics. Is this really benefiting this country? Is it really benefiting this country? Again, I say to every Liberian, it's time for us to begin to ask the hard question, to demand public audit, to insist on professional training. We can settle for shining earth, moving equipments. What's even more frustrating, we're going to be struggling trying to get those parts, because once we secure them, once we have them, once they're delivered, and when they start to break down, we don't have to train staff to maintain them. We don't even have to train staff to run them. The asset now we think we've just acquired will sooner or later become liability. The road to progress is built one honest brick at a time. Let the roads we build today carry our children's dreams tomorrow. I think it's so important for us to do that. I'm trying to close here, and as I conclude, always I like to close in a very, with a few quotes here, and being a Pan-Africanist, it's just time for us, and as a Liberian nationalist, we're not going to start this. And so again, if you have tuned in, this is the We Too Are Liberians Movement podcast or platform. This is what we do. We're here. We speak to and for the masses. Again, we say we're not in the business of manufacturing players, pimps, and hustlers. The book says, "Let this mind as in me be in you." What are your thoughts about this country? Why are we playing games? I'm not going to divert, but I have to go back and forth. God sends a degree of death. And anyone who would take advantage, we have all the resources, everything that we need to thrive, to be better. We keep playing games with ourselves. It's unfortunate. So remember these words. That's our rallying cry. If you want to go fast, this is the African proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I think it's time for all of us to come together and just forget about all this, party line. Partisan, I'm this, I'm Silesian, I am, from UP, and all that. Let's begin to see ourselves as Liberian. And I think if we do this, and some of the things that I just talked about, this is exactly what, this will be the foundation on which we will conduct ourselves so that we can build better infrastructure, build our human capacity, using our resources, and sooner or later, Liberia will be on top. The liberation of this continent, Africa, will come through unity and self-reliance, like Thomas Sankara once said. And so this goes for Liberia. This is a country that is not poor, but the people are poor because we have the resources. We are not inheriting a Liberia, that's, I would say our fathers, our forefathers, we understand what happened. So we have to make a difference. You know what I mean? And this is a one, I think it's an African problem. This land that we've inherited does not belong to ourselves. But it's for the children that are going to come after us. Infrastructure is not just the roads we drive on. It is the backbone of our sovereignty. Again, infrastructure is not just the roads we drive on. That's how I see it. It is the backbone of our sovereignty. So this whole securing or procuring a yellow machine, I don't think is the pathway for our infrastructure development, especially when it comes to our road. Think about the land that we need. Because if we're to try to measure up to our counterparts, you know what I mean? We're talking about drainage. We're talking about retention basin. You know what I mean? Detention basin. We need the infrastructure so we can build these mass transits. We build better roads. You know what I mean? We have to resettle our people. How can we do that with this kind of mindset where we want to pocket everything? You know? So thank you all for watching. You know, tonight, I think it's another exciting night for us because we are highlighting something that is so close to home. You know, paved promises, broken dreams, Liberia's roads nowhere. And why yellow machines won't save us. No, it won't save us. We can get 500. We can get 1 million. It won't save us. You know, it's important for us to invest in our people. Now, I mean, pursue hundreds of trained engineers, like I said, technicians and planners. That will be the pathway to improving our infrastructure. People building all over the place. People dying every day. We see that even in the developed country, in the Western world, and for a country where you have the citizens. I went to Liberia. I stand at Balanceville Junction. You can't even see the junction. You go to New Georgia Junction. You can't see the junction. People walking all over the place. The street overcrowded. No sight distance. People building all alongside the road. In the alleyway, in the wetland. What kind of country do we want? What type of people are we? Who we are as a people. And I'm concluding, and this is how we're going to conclude. I draw the curtain tonight. This is Ayiti Williams on the We Too Our Liberians Movement podcast. We must challenge, build, and transform because Liberia deserves better than yellow machines or yellow bandages over systemic wounds. Good night and good infrastructure. Thank you very much. You have a good night, and I look forward to another episode here next time. This is once again Ayiti Williams, your host as usual. Let us find reason to begin to think big outside the box, and that's why we say we're not in the business of actually manufacturing players, pimps, and hoes, but rather we're in the business of changing and revolution. Nice. I want to close with this story. You know what I mean? And I think this story I took from Morehouse College. You know, it was 37 men, former slaves, who would be the first graduate of Morehouse College. What did they do? Those 37 men. One decided they would be preacher men and teachers, would go back to the university and to teach. And now they would create the doctors, the lawyers, the engineers, the sociologists, the nurses. So you and I, we do have a responsibility. And so that's why we say, I draw this from the same Morehouse College, there's no room for excuse. because excuses are tools for the incompetence made to build bridges to nowhere and monuments of nothingness. So I look forward to an exciting week, and I hope that this show actually resonates with you. Liberia deserves better. Liberia deserves all of the best. High quality roads, high quality infrastructure. We're tired of the optics. Thank you very much for watching. And I look forward to seeing all of you here on the We to Our Liberians Movement podcast. And you have a good night. God bless you. And I look forward to seeing you again. Bye.
Simple life. It's all we want to live. Give me food, give me clothes, give me love, and give me shelter. Simple.